All right, everyone, we are right at the half hour, so I am going to go ahead and get us started. First, I just want to thank you all for joining us today, and I know we'll have folks coming in over the next few minutes. So I'm Dr. Ellen Verso, and this is my colleague, Dr. Paul Grant. I don't know how he's showing up on all your devices, so why don't you say hi, Paul, so in case your face pops up, they can see you.
Hi.
And we are the directors of the Becca Institute Center for Recovery-Oriented Cognitive Therapy. And we are really looking forward to coming together in such a large group to be able to talk together about how we can really flourish in this time of prescribed social distancing. And our focus for our conversation today is going to be all about how we can really facilitate some creative connection in our lives. So I'm going to just go through a couple things that'll be important to kick us off, and then I will have Paul introduce why this is such an important topic. So first, my slide wants to move, that'd be cool. Of all the things, there we go. So we have received a pretty tremendous response from all around the world to joining us in this dialogue today, and thought it'd be helpful for you guys to know just in a nutshell who we are. So Becca Institute and Becca Institute Center for Recovery-Oriented Cognitive Therapy, we're a nonprofit organization, and our mission is all about improving lives worldwide through excellence in cognitive therapy. And what we are really hoping for today is to be able to come together and talk about some really practical ways that we can maybe improve our lives just even a little bit in some of the ways that we connect virtually and otherwise with our loved ones, maybe with the clients we're working with, and even just things that make us feel like ourselves in the day-to-day with all of these changes and uncertainties that we've been going through. As we are going through this, as questions come up and as you develop different thoughts about how we might be able to support you or those that you care about, please feel free to reach out to us at beccainstitute.org, and we will be really responsive. We want to be a source of the connection that you all have during this time. Here's our plan for today. We've got a real small time. We're maxing it right at the half-hour mark. But what we're going to start off with is talking about why is connection so important to both our physical and mental health. And we're going to talk about how we use the cognitive model to really get the most of the activities that we can do. Since right now is focused so much on the things that we're really not able to do, what can we do and how can we take something away from that? And then I'm going to talk a bit about some really practical ways that we can have creative connection in our day-to-day, things that we can try out from the moment we disconnect from this conversation to tomorrow, to next week. And we hope that this will be really useful for yourself, your family, those that you may be working with. And as part of that, we want you to really be involved in this conversation. So we really invite you to ask us questions, to share your thoughts, and we're going to do the best we can in virtually brainstorming some ways to come together. And I want to make sure that everyone knows, I think lots of folks maybe found us through the resource page that Becca Institute has, but we've got the link there and we're going to be sending it out again because the resources that we're compiling are growing, and we're really inviting so many people to contribute, tell us the things that you've been able to do to feel like your best selves and really connect with others and live with purpose during this time. So I'm going to go through just a couple housekeeping details and we will roll into our topic. Looks like some folks have already figured this out, but we want you to join in the conversation using the question and answer box. Submit your questions and thoughts throughout. Don't feel like you have to wait until we're done talking. One of the things we may try and do is incorporate some of your ideas into the conversation if we can. If you're having any technical issues, if the sound cuts out, video, any of those issues, when you submit your question, we have some team members who are incredible and on the sides who will respond to you privately to try and help you get back online with us. We realize that we have a really short time together today, so any questions that you have that we don't get a chance to directly respond to as part of this talk, we want you to know that everyone will receive an email afterwards with some brief written responses about how we might apply our approach to what you got going on. So with that said, I want to just let you know that we're coming from a recovery-oriented cognitive therapy approach, or CTR. And just briefly, recovery-oriented cognitive therapy is an approach that was really is all about helping people get what they want in life. It uses the cognitive model to help us understand the beliefs that we hold about ourselves, other people in the world that really help us get those things that we want and really care about. It also helps us to understand the ways in which we can sometimes get stuck. And there's 5 key parts to the CTR approach, and we're really focusing on the first one today, which is all about how do we develop connection and feel like our best selves. And that's about just accessing that really great mode of being. Once we learn about what it is that we're into and like and how we can connect with other people, we're going to want to bring that into every day. And that's the second piece, which is energizing. And that's going to be our focus. When Paul and Dr. Ehrenbeck began on this journey in developing CTR over 20 years ago now, they really were focusing on collaborating with some of the folks who've had the greatest experiences of this connection, really profound disconnection to others in the world, sometimes because they thought that they couldn't get it, and sometimes because they had a lot of beliefs that were kind of crashing in on them, telling them that it wasn't safe. And through that, we've learned so much about how important connection is and how we can make so much meaning in our lives through the activities that we share with others. So with that, I am going to pass this over to Dr. Paul Grant, who's going to talk about why this is so important.
Thanks, Ellen. I'm really happy to be here and have an opportunity to talk about this critical topic. As a lot of you probably know, one of the things that's happened around the world is that people in various neighborhoods have taken to at particular times of night, all opening their windows and clapping together. And this is happening in New York City, for example, right now in certain neighborhoods. And one of the things that the people report about this is that it seems to help somehow, that they feel better when they do it. And I thought we could maybe spend a little bit of time thinking about why that might be, a simple act of clapping with others out the window being something that's really helpful. For about the last 30 years or so, people in public health have really penned down the importance of connection for physical and mental health. This has happened all over the world, all kinds of samples and all kinds of ways of measuring it. But the basic story seems to be that when people are isolated, when they're lonely, when they really don't have a lot of social interaction, they're much more likely to develop illnesses earlier. They're less likely to live as long, and of course, their quality of life isn't all that great. But the flip side to that is that getting involved in connection and things of that sort really makes for a healthier life, more well-being, that kind of thing. I want to draw attention to the fact that part of what the research shows is it doesn't matter if you have a mental health diagnosis or not, in terms of the isolation being not so good for you, but also the connection being good for you. And this is important in CTR because this is the basic bedrock kind of how we're going to do things. And as Ellen said, we originally developed it to work with individuals who were given a serious mental health diagnosis like schizophrenia. So people really have been isolated and outside of any kind of flow. I think it's important to bring the cognitive model in to understand sort of the way in which isolation maybe doesn't work so well for us, and how connection really does. And it's that second part that I think we're going to really focus on when we get practical. So when someone starts to feel disconnected, you see yourself very negatively, and so you feel like you're not really going to be able to do anything, that other people don't really care, they don't get you. It can get stronger, it can get more powerful as you get into the cycle. You start to think you're really unlovable, and that other people really dislike you, don't like you. And it's just too much energy to do it anyway. So maybe why would you bother? It's not going to work out. And that can sort of lead into depression and ultimately, in a prolonged way, to a lot of the physical problems that the public health people have observed. But if we flip it around, imagine now that you're the person clapping out the window. What does it say about you that you're clapping out the window with your neighbors? What's the best part about that? You see yourself more positively. You have a positive feel about yourself. You're connected to something that's larger than yourself, something you couldn't do by yourself. So other people appreciate you and you do something with them. And as the experience grows, you might sort of realize, you might think you're in touch with your values. You're together with other people. You're doing something that really seems important. Other people seem really appealing and a good part of your life. You want to do more of this kind of thing. I draw attention to these sorts of beliefs because noticing them in the moment is good medicine. So what do we do? Oh, one more thing I'm going to remind you about. There's a new book out that I recommend by the 19th Surgeon General. It's called Together. His name is Vivek Murthy. And he reminds us that the prescription right now is not for social distancing, but actually physical distancing. And so what we want to be able to do is maintain the safe distance so that we're not involved in transmitting the virus, but still do the social things to keep us healthy, that kind of thing. So the question is how to do that. And that's where I think we're going to move into CTR. And the formula really is about physically distant social activities like the clapping. That's what we want to do. And then we want to notice the best parts about that because it brings out our best self. And in this way, CTR is good medicine for us now. I'm going to hand it back over to Ellen, who's going to talk specifically about how you do it.
Thanks, Paul. So just wanted to make sure that folks heard the book was called Together, right? Paul, the book you just mentioned?
Mm-hmm. Together.
Together. Great. All right. So how do we do that? How is it that we can still facilitate this experience of connection while we have to maintain this physical distancing? And I think that that's a really important distinction, Paul, so I appreciate you mentioning that. And so what I'm going to do is I want to share with you, we have some really cool opportunities as a team here to talk with folks through all walks of life in so many different circumstances. I've had the opportunity this week to talk with folks who are working in inpatient psychiatric facilities, folks who run residences, parents who are trying to facilitate connection with their families or with some of their aging relatives who are in circumstances where they can't really see each other. And so I wanted to kickstart this by sharing with you just some of the things that folks have been letting us know have been helpful for them. The first area of connection that people have described as being really helpful is finding ways to have find meaning in their day-to-day. Meaning is really important. When we're thinking about us at our best, we're oftentimes thinking about times when we're maybe contributing to others, when we feel like we have something to offer. And so we've had folks who have been finding ways to help others, even with the different limitations and restrictions they have. I want to share a couple examples with you. So I had this cool conversation with a woman in upstate New York who is overseeing some different residential facilities, and I heard about a really cool thing that they were doing. They were playing bingo together through the residents, so people were in their own rooms over an intercom system, thinking creatively about how people can still experience belonging. That's an important role that we have, is that the role of being connected to other people through fun. Other things that we have found were that, and we did this actually in my own home with my family, is finding ways to have a role serving our community, doing home-based community service, writing cards to people who really can't connect with folks right now, drawing pictures, sending well wishes to people we wish we could be with. And these are things that can happen via mail or they can happen electronically. There's a lot of opportunities. Some other things that folks have been doing are teaching each other about their interests and things that they care about. Here in my house, we've been doing like fact of the day because we just are trying to learn something new. My son is super into facts, and so he's finding something new for us to learn each day. That's been translated into some of the other services that we work with where people are asking for some help. You know, I'm kind of stuck at home. Is there a new recipe I can try? Is there a tried and true, you know, family recipe that I should know about that might help me out in this time? It's really about give and take. We're able to connect really well when we're able to support each other in those ways. So I learned about a really cool thing at an inpatient unit actually just yesterday, where they did something called the Quarantine Cafe. Quarantine Cafe. Now, where a lot of folks have been focusing attention on the disconnection and what we can't do together, what this unit was able to do was frame it in such a way that while they were having their snacks, they were doing it in this physically distant, safe way, but they were doing it in the frame of, hey, let's have seating. Let's have one of the individuals on the unit be able to call people in for their snack seating, and making it a fun way to focus the attention on the connection that they could have versus focusing the attention on how important it was to stay apart. Because even though they were doing the good physical distancing, they were still able to help people notice that we can still have a way to connect and be together despite the changes. One of the things I'm going to do is I see that someone asked a question that I'm just going to go ahead and answer on here, which is about some folks who may be having some negative thoughts about connecting right now, people who may be hesitant to reach out and develop connection, who may be impacted by some of those beliefs that Paul was just talking about, that what's the point of connecting? I can't do anything right now anyway. So I just want to go ahead and answer that question. I think it's really relevant. When I click that, hopefully people can actually see the question being asked. Okay. So we want to think about why might it be that folks would be hesitant in these times to reach out and to participate in these ways of reaching out. And I think that some of the things we hear from people are, what's the point? Why bother? There's nothing I could do about this anyway. And just feeling that sense of no control. I have no control over this situation. There's nothing I can do. And so in those circumstances, some of the things we found really helpful are helping a person tap into their sense of values and find a way in which they can do something to give to others. One example we have of that was, well, we have some folks who had a tendency to isolate, to really stay to themselves. And now that we, staff or other loved ones who had typically been kind of pulling them out of the room and getting them connected aren't there, they're really just kind of meeting at the door, doing a transaction maybe to get meals, meds, and then moving along. And so what we said is, what are the things that we've connected around with people before? What are the things that we've talked with them about in the past that got them maybe a little bit more energized, created a little spark? Do we know something that they have knowledge about? Do we have, whether that's food or music or how to crochet or something like that? Do we know something about them that we can just ask them about at the outset of the connection? So for example, when I see someone, before I go into mood and meds and meals, can I go up to a person and say, you know what, I think I am kind of tapped out on my music quotient right now. I'm feeling kind of bored. What's something you would recommend? Should I listen to this artist or that artist? Doing something like that at the outset of a connection gives the person an opportunity to help you with something. You can feel really connected, but it might just spark enough energy that we can draw a conclusion about how nice it is to be connected in spite of these challenges. So that's just something that I would consider. What have we connected about before? How do we help them to give us just a little bit of that? Someone also asked a question about how we do that over the phone, perhaps, if we're not able to really be in person with the individual or with our loved one. And I say there's a couple possibilities. Can we listen to music together on the phone, something that's going to generate positive affect, energy, and connection? Can we set action plans with folks to go do something separately, but then come back together over the phone or over video and talk about it. We have people who have said, we're going to go try and work out, do some exercises. When we come back together, let's talk about how it went. Part of it is that we don't have to do the activity together as much as it is that our mission is coming back together and making some meaning from it. What was the best part about it? How did that go? And is it worth doing again? If we can help someone have even just one positive experience, we can really liven that up and draw a lot of attention to it. So if we, someone just sent a message, again, I'm going to read this, I know folks can't see it. A wonderful colleague of mine in Pittsburgh just sent a message that she did phone group therapy yesterday and played music, and they all danced in their own respective places. So I think that that is a perfect example of how we can still bring some life into whether it's sessions or just our day-to-day interactions with people. We just have to be willing to be a little bit creative about it. Give ourselves permission to be super creative. Someone else suggested, what about a Netflix house party where we can watch movies with our friends? I love that. Any opportunity that we have to share our interests with each other and then just draw attention to, this is worth doing, we should do this again. I think that's going to be really, really important. This is really, okay, I just got another really great question about trying to do some of those things and wanting to make sure that it feels really genuine, that sometimes it can feel a little phony. How do we make it genuine? It's one of the keys to connection, right? So I think part of it is right now, there's so much overlap in our lives. One of the things that we all have in common is that everything's changing all around us. And so I think if we can call that out and say, you know what, things might feel a little strange. What can we try just to feel a little bit like ourselves? And I'm really big into using the word we very intentionally, because we can all do these things. It's not just mental health, it's human stuff. We all have mental health. We all are navigating this. So I would say a suggestion to help things feel really just normal and genuine is to say, what makes you feel like yourself on the day-to-day? Is there something I can try? And maybe I have a few ideas of things other people have done. I have a wonderful postdoc on our team who asked an individual for music recommendations over the phone because that's his interest. And so it was really genuine because he's able to more he's able to help her in that way. So hopefully that's helpful. Paul, is there anything that you want to add as I've been kind of rattling off a bunch of different ideas, and Lord knows I have more. So I want to give you a chance if there's anything you wanted to say.
Yeah, I think I think it's all good. I think that constraints are an interesting way to actually build this kind of good connection. The constraints actually bring out the best in people. That's what I think about when I think about the quarantine cafe. So we can't be together the way we would usually be. How can we do this in such a way that we really enjoy it, and getting everybody involved in figuring out how to do that? I think very recently, a bunch of people got together for their family dinners as a part of their religious tradition. And those things are similar. And I think once the event gets rolling, once you're doing all the good things, the fact that you're on a screen isn't quite so noticeable. But I really think the key thing is to really have everyone notice what it's like, and that you still have the connection and you still value each other. And these are really important things to do for our well-being and for really to get through some challenging times.
No, I agree. And you brought up something really important that relates to a question that was asked about how this might vary from culture to culture. And I think that it does. I think that what we're really talking about is facilitating connection in whichever way feels the most, authentic, really. So I will just share my own experience. I have a really big New Jersey Italian family, and being together is really, really a part of our values, and finding ways to bring people together. And this weekend, we have a Zoom call set up with about 40 some people who are all going to be coming together around a meal and a day that would be something we would have come together for other times. And so I think that from the cultural perspective, what are the things that we would what do we value, and how can we do more of that? If the value is in taking care of our older relatives, how do we send them things or find ways to connect virtually that help it feel at least like we're trying to come together in that way. And just even from the broader perspective, we've gotten a lot of, I think many of us have found these online, and we're going to add these to the resource page for you. But there are a lot of local historical places that are doing free virtual tours right now to help you feel more connected, not just to individuals, but to the broader community, where you can kind of self-navigate if you have the technology to do so. I know there's a lot of free audio programming and movies that are coming out that people can watch separately, come together and discuss. So I think that part of it is tapping into what am I doing when I feel at my best? How do I see myself in those times? Is it connected, helpful, capable? And is there something that I can do every day that helps me to experience that right now? And if I can do that, then that says that I'm a really resilient person and able to navigate these challenges and still feel part of things. And being really attentive to time and seeing that these half hours fly by. We've got just a couple minutes left, so I'm going to I'm kind of scrolling through to see if there's another thing I can add. While I'm looking through, I will let you know that next Friday, one of the things that we're going to be talking about is living with purpose every day. So we start off with trying to focus on connection, but we also want to think about how what we do every day might get us to something bigger and to kind of the next thing. So we hope that you will join us for that as well. I see lots of questions that we will definitely reply to over we'll email you about. I want to address this. So some kids being afraid to connect because they don't have anything to talk about, quote unquote, especially those social challenges. So they've been doing connecting activities like playing Magic the Gathering via Zoom, having tea over Zoom. My mom and daughter actually had a virtual tea party, so I love that. Dressing up like Tiger King characters and reading horoscopes and things. I think that's where it's at. Let's be creative. Someone asked specifically about ideas for little ones under 8. Virtual tea party, great idea. My son is teaching my husband video games. I say everyone in a family has an opportunity to connect around sharing our interests, no matter what they are. Everyone's interests are valid. So I think that's something we should keep in mind. I feel like there was something I was going to share with you guys, and being so attentive to time that it might have slipped my mind. We talked about, I do want to talk about connection when maybe people are a little bit more to themselves. We don't maybe have a lot of either resources or just the personal connection. And something to that we can be encouraging about is every single one of us are connected to our global community when we do practice the social and physical distancing. And so sometimes right now, one of the best things we can do for others is, staying in and I think drawing people's attention to what does that mean about them and their ability to contribute to their community by following this right now, because it's not easy. And I think the stress is looking different for all of us. And we'll be talking about the stress and all that in a couple of weeks. But if we are able to draw conclusions about the role that we have in the world right now and that we can share with others, maybe it'll help just, keep our mindset fresh. So, Paul, see if you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up this afternoon.
Thank you for all the great questions. We'll try to get to the ones we couldn't answer here. But I think the take home is that physical distancing and social connection are both important for our well-being, and that's really what we want to shoot for. And as I was saying before, I think the creativity that you can bring to that really lifts everyone up. And so in trying times, we actually become better than we were in easier times. So, and that's what we're hoping to promote. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So we thank you so much for hanging out with us today and spending the last half hour with us. Like I said, next week we're going to be focusing on purpose and how we live that every day. At the conclusion of this, you guys are going to get a link to a survey where we're going to ask you how this kind of format was. And so, you know, there were about over 300 of us together live today doing this. So even in this space, we're connected, and we really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.